lessons that you said you learned from the 30 dates, which I think can really relate to the audience.
What's your
as well.
source on this?
Hey, I tell you, he does his homework.
Deux mois, actually. They got me. Deux mois. Okay, so number one, if it's not abundantly clear that the person is into you, it's not worth pursuing that.
Yeah.
Right? Do you still
I still agree, because that is what happened, is that I kind of, for the first time, I changed my behavior. Normally, I would be the one reaching out. I let them reach out, and I think I could tell off the bat if people were into me or not, because the ones that weren't reaching out weren't into me.
Mm-hmm. And we always say, I mean, it's not a universal rule, but like me personally, like if I was ever into a woman, and to any degree, I would initiate and be like, hey, like I would love to figure out how to see you again, no matter how busy I was, you know?
And I think early on that's important, but I think later in the relationship you don't have to do that. But I think for like the first 3 dates to like let the other person, especially if your pattern is always being the one reaching out and not getting results, like maybe try flipping that.
Yeah, and on our first date, I made a second date before we left each other to show her, like, hey, I want to take you out again.
Which is great. That's more guys should do that.
Yeah, because along with that, you say that a lot of people overthink. You know, we overthink what we do, and that's a perfect example. It's like, oh, should I wait to text because I want to seem needy, or the Saturday night thing? Yeah. But you said you should kind of go with your gut.
Go with your gut, be genuine, and then also, like, why would you want someone that doesn't respond to the genuine version of yourself?
Which, perfect segue to number 2. Be fully yourself.
Yeah.
We pretend to be different people or the best version of ourselves. And you said you were 110%.
I was 110% myself, and I think my husband was maybe too much himself before I called him out. But I do think, I think you should be yourself, because why would you pretend? Because then eventually your true colors are going to show. And I find maybe I did that sometimes with dating, but I feel like I had also dated guys that came off as this perfect person, and then they ghosted me or treated me like crap. And it's like, oh, wait, that's who they always were. They were just hiding that.
Yeah. I feel like you watched the show, because we're touching on everything that we've talked about in a way better way. One thing we always say is, like, we always try and act like the perfect person that we think the other person wants us to be, which is the worst thing to do. Yeah. And A, you were your true self on the date, but B, like, your true self will eventually come out, and you're going to let somebody down because you were never your real self on the first few dates.
And the same thing goes with curating your dating app profile. So many people do all these like glossy filtered photos, or photos that they're told like this is the photos you need on your dating app to like attract the best guys. And also I think on the other end, when you're swiping, if you see a profile that's like too heavily curated, that means everyone else is also swiping right at that person, and they have so many messages, and they're not, to me, I don't think they're worth pursuing. I would always go for the ones that felt a little bit more like organic. I mean, my husband's profile wasn't really great because he didn't know.
No guys are.
Still doesn't. The one thing from that is he still cannot take a decent photo to save his life.
None of us can.
So, you know, like, but that's like whatever. But that's a big thing too, because I think a lot of people pretend, and that's why you get that whole thing like you look nothing like your photos. It's like, well, yeah, my photos are like heavily filtered and they're like headshots. Like your photos should look like you, and you should be honest and be yourself in your, if there's like prompts or anything, like really right from your heart. You'll get less matches, but the matches you get will be higher quality.
Yeah, I think also like we've done 20 of these podcasts. I'm loving every second of it because we're going to talk to really interesting people. And I'm learning so much. And I think the thing that I've learned the most over the past few months is that there's all these rules and guidelines, but like they're just guidelines. Like don't ever feel like you have to like follow them, or, you know, like you said, 1 hour rule. Like we've had dating coaches that do have a hard stop, even if it's going well.
See, that's then that's not being authentic to who you are. Like this dating advice is meant to be more like suggestions. They're not meant to be like rules.
Right.
And I see that, we're talking about TikTok dating experts, like literal biggest pet peeve. And I write for Giddy, which is it's like the world's largest sexual health platform, but we also do like dating articles and stuff. And my favorite thing to do is to take something that's trending on TikTok and debunk it. And having real experts, and a lot of times psychiatrists, therapists, people with actual like degrees, the amount of evidence they're like, this is why this is bullshit, is almost always overpowering. And the TikToker never defends themselves. I reached out to them. Sorry, she's too busy. Too busy doing what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm giving you free press right here, and you can't stand up and defend your thing.
Because it's usually just regurgitated stuff that they've seen someone else do. And just like I said, the meme culture that just like permeates like
it's
this
crazy.
whole.
And I hate the four signs you should run right away, right?
yeah.
Because then you would have ran right away.
Yeah, I would. It has to come. I think the biggest dating rule is to trust your gut and go with what feels right and follow your heart. And like, I think listening to people and following advice that doesn't feel right to you is very problematic.
Yeah, and I think if you can, it's very hard. If you cannot, unsolicited dating advice is literally the worst advice ever. And if you could kind of keep it with that person and you guys figure it out together until you really need to go to an outside source, like that's where the best answers are going to be, you know?
Yeah, and also that dating should be easy within the first couple of like months. Even the first year of dating should be easy. So much of this advice is to help people that are like, I don't know, like he's not texting me, like I don't like having all these problems. I would argue that you shouldn't be having all of these problems in the beginning of the relationship. That should come later. And that's like the ultimate red flag to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to close the loop, number 3, because I think these are super important because I know we're believers of a first date drink, not dinner.
Yeah.
I know you are too, or an activity,
Firm
a walk,
believer.
you know, something.
Firm believer, yeah.
So you say don't put so much pressure on a first date. And I think, you know, especially if it's like a nice dinner or a fancy dinner, or you're like, it's a whole production, then that can really just add to the pressure and make you kind of on edge and not able to relax and enjoy yourself.
And also not see the person for who they really are. I call it bachelor-lighting, like gaslighting, but the Bachelor. Because if your first date is like the quality of something you would see on the show The Bachelor, then you risk the chance of falling for someone because of the quality of the date and not the quality of the person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think
Yeah,
that happens.